It's a difficult thing for anyone who doubts the authorship of the plays to realize that whoever wrote the plays, they wanted us, no doubt about it, they wanted us to believe that the man from Stratford wrote the plays. So what are we doing by revealing a possible truth behind that? Is that a good thing to do? I don't know.
Almost there.
The Norwegian organist and codebreaker Petter Amundsen has been taking me on a journey through his theories. He has found codes in Shakespeare's first folio which he believes lead to Francis Bacon and Henry Neville as the true authors of Shakespeare. Beyond this, Petter has found evidence of Rosicrucian involvement in the production of the first folio.
Look.
Right. I mean, that's certainly there. That
You cannot be denied.
No. Including the shadowy brotherhood symbolic numbers 53 and 37, and the significant 3-4-5 triangle.
Oh, what a fantastic... Oh, God, wow, this is amazing. This is beautiful.
Could we ever get over our disagreements about who wrote Shakespeare?
It's fascinating.
Did you see this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say.
No.
And would Petter's codes ever convince me?
I put faith in good or valid cryptography.
Yeah.
So this is something that I just throw on the table as a possible solution to your demand for a better answer than Bacon for this emotional, gut-wrenching ability that Shakespeare demonstrates. And we haven't seen that of Bacon in his scientific writings.
Or in his essays, you know.
Yeah, it's not the same thing.
No.
So perhaps this person we are missing from the equation is indeed Henry Neville. Because I found inescapable, to me, cipher solutions connected with him.
Okay.
And I began a quest based on the book by Brenda James, The Truth Will Out.
Petter then focused on the authorship of the sonnets, Shakespeare's sequence of poems. On the first page there is a dedication to the Only Begetter.
Now, her method, I could not really understand why she was doing what she was doing, but she managed to find gold, I think, because every 15th letter becomes Henry.
Okay.
But I will show what I think is the correct way of this. Do you know chronograms?
No.
Those are words where you have Roman numerals.
Oh, right, okay.
So the modern word is a chronogram, but the old Greek word is an etiostic.
Okay.
Now, this first line, if you think of that as a chronogram, we only have Li.
Okay. So that's 51, is that?
That is 51.
Yeah.
So counting letters, this is letter 51, that N. Now, reversing is 15. And then if you count backwards. Hen.
And that one.
By Henry.
By Henry, right. I mean, obviously, as I believe, this Only Begetter was Henry Ridsley, the Earl of Southampton. Then that Henry
Fits very well
for me.
Yeah.
So I suppose that does, in a sense, demonstrate the instability of these codes, that it just depends on the subjective interpretation of them in some ways.
But so far we haven't seen the real beauty of this. I kept that.
Okay.
Yeah. Because remembering that RC is 20, instead of counting 15, we count 20. 20. 20. 20. 20. Neville. What we should do is here to include those two and those two.
Oh, okay.
And then
Well,
it works
okay,
by Henry Neville. What do you think?
Who's this Henry Neville guy?
Yeah, he dies almost at the same time as Shakespeare dies. And when Shakespeare dies, the production of plays stops. So I was thinking, if Bacon had 10 more years to live, why aren't there any more plays?
So you're suggesting that these two personae, Francis Bacon and Henry Neville, together potentially wrote these works using William Shakespeare as the facade, as it were, as the
Because what's there is there.
But I'd like to show you now a letter that Bacon wrote. It was written in the 1600s. It's a letter to John Davies, the poet.
who also wrote many acrostic poems, in fact.
Oh. And it says, be good to concealed poets. Continually yours, Francis Bacon.
But what? Okay,
Poets
okay, yeah.
and concealed poets.
Well, I mean, that certainly fits your theory. It's certainly quite a shocking revelation. But what are you saying? Why is this relevant? You're saying that this is maybe, I mean, again, it was worth finding out, because obviously if this is written to somebody who knows about this conspiracy, or knows about this brotherhood of this project, as you term it, then that is significant.
In this period of time, Bacon was quite poor. So maybe he was looking for funding for his project.
Oh, okay, for patronage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shakespeare's Gravestone in Holy Trinity Church, Stratford, is one of England's most visited landmarks. Admirers from all over the world come here to pay homage to the world's most famous playwright.
So, Petter, who do you think wrote these lines?
I think Francis Bacon wrote those. So this could be his epitome of poetic mastery.
Well, then he wasn't a great poet at any point.
But it is interesting as a cryptographical specimen, though.
Everybody recognises that the poem carved into the stone is of poor quality. The poem contains a curse against the opening of the tomb, but nowhere on the gravestone is Shakespeare's name actually mentioned.
According to the earlier biographies, the text wasn't like this. The original stone had been moved.
In around 1820, the original gravestone was allegedly moved, but from prints and drawings we know that it looked quite different from the one that we see today.
Can you notice the difference?
Well, there's some smaller case letters, is that what you're saying?
And this is exactly what it's all about.
The original gravestone had the same text, but with one key difference. On the original gravestone, words were formed of seemingly random upper and lower case letters. Some people have argued that this is because the text is written in Francis Bacon's famous biliterary cipher. But to date, no one has been able to crack the code.
This is Francis Bacon's biliterary cipher in the advancement of learning.
Bacon's cipher makes it possible to insert the text into a 5-letter system of A's and B's. Uppercase is category B, lowercase is category A. The poem can now be deciphered into a new alphabet, revealing a different set of letters.
Okay, so does it spell something out if we go through?
Well, I found that the letters of Shakespeare is built of these letters.
Obviously, I'm thinking, well, there's even more proof that Shakespeare wrote Shakespeare. You know, we've even by this biliterary cipher, we've got his name encrypted within his epitaph. So
we lack his name, and now it's
suddenly it's there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. But the man who created this cipher His initials are also here, FRBA.
Francis Bacon.
Yes. Now what?
You tell me.
There is a method described by Cardanus.
In the 1500s, the Italian writer Girolamo Cardano described a code system, autoclaves, where the key to unlock the code is concealed within the coded text itself.
You need a keyword to unlock this.
And what do you think that keyword is?
Well, I noticed that we have yeta
Right.
enclosed by the other letters.
Okay. And of course, on a purely simple level, the dust is indeed enclosed within the grave, so...
Yes. It could be dust. Dust, 4 letters. Yeta, 4 letters. And the way you use a keyword with the autoclave system is that you simply add letters together. So I completed it, and it becomes canv. So FR, bacon, V.
Right. I mean,
My first thought was verulam.
yeah.
And
Which was,
then
Francis Bacon was Lord Verulam, his first title when he was raised to the peerage. I mean, it would suit your purposes rather more, one imagines, if that was an O rather than an A at the end, wouldn't it? You know, you do wonder why he would take such effort to create this elegant, complicated cipher and then misspell his own name.
I wasn't happy with that.
No. Right.
But the frustration I felt led to new discoveries.
Okay.
Petter replaces the coded letters with numbers and finds out that the value of each line is now 53.
So again, we encounter the mysterious 53.
I mean, again, and it's not, I mean, you lose me at times. I just about managed to hold on to my comprehension with it.
And you also have the blanks because you have the RA, AR.
And there's you can think of nothing.
Of course, I can think of 2 things.
Right.
Arra. Arabon Arra is an agreement entered with a sum of money.
So you're suggesting that basically Bacon paid Shakespeare to act as the front man for this
It's
rather elaborate Rosicrucian conspiracy. Yeah, so...
Another possibility is that the W can also be a sigma. Aras, like a blanket.
Oh, I see.
And the dust compounded.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, so Bacon's behind the arras basically, and maybe
Because of the line in Hamlet.
absolutely.
Compounded it with dust.
What have you done, my lord, with the dead body?
Compounded it with dust. We're to his kin.
So
I mean, well, that's interesting. That is an interesting idea.
But it's just a stone. It's
Yeah.
not the works of Shakespeare. So I thought, okay, someone could have been doing this as some kind of practical joke, so I had to learn more about it. And that's when I bought the first folio.
Right. So, what's next?
On the wall above the tomb is a memorial plaque in honour of Shakespeare. It was put up only a few years after his death. In it, he is compared to the great authors of antiquity.
Stay, passenger, why goest thou by so fast? Read if thou canst. What does that say to you?
If you can read, continue to read. No more than that.
Well, I have another thought, and that is that if you study it carefully, if you stay and you don't go by so fast, can read whom envious death has placed within this monument, Shakespeare.
Yeah.
So this is what I did.
Okay.
Shakespeare, he was 52 years old, maximum.
Yeah.
Maybe 51, almost 52, or 52, which means that 53 is wrong. So again, we encounter the mysterious 53. I thought this 52 had been correct. His achieved age.
Right.
Read if thou canst. 53 is geometry. So I created a 3-4-5 triangle ending at the B.
And if you look at the line above, far more than cost Z all that he hath writ. And you know German.
I do know a bit of German, yeah.
Z.
C.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't it peculiar to have a German word suddenly inside this?
Okay, well that's interesting. They do suggest, don't they, that the Rosicrucians began in Germany as a sort of Germanic movement.
But what if that Germanic word reversed becomes a Germanic expression? A statement.
Okay.
Age.
Heiss.
Heist. So.
So heisen is to be called, isn't it?
Is thus called. Heist so. And before heist so we have the A, and after heist so the C. B, A, C. And if you complete the pentagon, you have the O and the N.
So is thus called bacon.
Yeah. Read if thou canst. But what I think is as interesting is that after the C, N-E-V-I-L.
Right. Neville.
Neville.
And you think this is Henry Neville?
Yeah. I think those two guys and Shakespeare pulled this thing off. Little thing. Huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Neville thing's there as well. I mean, that is interesting. Genuinely.
The name Henry Neville kept cropping up, and I knew so little about him. Later on, we took a detour to Audley End House near Saffron Walden to see a portrait of him. Does Henry Neville, the man Petter believed really wrote Shakespeare, look a bit like me?
I mean, who do you believe wrote this? Somebody connected with Bacon, connected with Neville? Is that what you're suggesting?
Because of the mastery of Bacon and his cryptological ability, I would think that he probably devised this. He didn't necessarily cut it himself, but I think that the layout of everything.
Almost certain that he didn't.
No, but I think that he had something to do with this. But I think it's the Rosicrucian fraternity. It could be many, it could be few. We don't know. But he was one of them. I'm
Shakespeare
sure.
was one of them.
But exactly what his role was, except from fronting the project and giving the name and taking the blame if something happened, I cannot really say. But the two master minds, I think, are these guys, Bacon and Neville.
You're going some way to make me think interestingly about Shakespeare's potential membership or connection to the Rosicrucians, but to be honest, you're going to have to come up with some better stuff than triangles and reverse German words.
Okay. But we also have things to say about the Latin inscription.
Okay.
Because genio Socratem is bad Latin. Because the accusative should be Greek accusative, which is Socraten with an N.
Right.
Yeah. And if you change that to the proper N that it should have been, and you instead of just one letter, you take those two letters. Stramen omo, straw man.
So this man was this was the man of straw. This was the dummy, the puppet that
From the
Francis
Returns
Bacon.
of Parnassus, if you read that one, so you are nothing but a man of straw. Yeah. But I'm not happy because I have to take 2 letters from that one, and that makes it less than
well,
perfect.
That's fine. If you're similarly unhappy with it, I'm unhappy with it for other reasons. This man might have been petty, litigious, and problematic, but he was also the greatest genius our language has ever.
What a great straw man who did his job excellently. T-E-S-T, teste, witness this, stramenomon. Let me just show you, for your interest, the first picture of this bust.
Okay,
published in 1756. 1 second. Oops.
Right, well, that's obviously radically different, isn't it?
Isn't it? Especially the way he holds his arms.
Yeah, I mean, you could just about let him get away with the sack and, of course, with not having the quill or the paper, but there does seem, in the angle of the elbows, to be a real difference there.
And the moustache, very different.
This bust of William Shakespeare is believed to have been erected a few years after his death in 1616. Some 30 years later, in 1656, the antiquary and herald Sir William Dugdale made this depiction of the monument.
I mean, it could potentially, let's face it, still just be a pretty bad rendition of this. It could.
It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know me now, you think?
Yeah,
would I just go
there's
with
no
that?
just could be. So, yeah, right, okay. So what are you suggesting then?
What this William does is to mimic the square and compasses. With his moustache continued into his elbows becomes the compasses, and the square with his hands.
So who was this man, William Dugdale? His son-in-law was none other than the celebrated politician and antiquarian Elias Ashmole, who was the first person in England to privately admit that he was a freemason.
So I would suspect that Dugdale was a Mason, and the reason he didn't write about Masonry was because he was a Mason. Masons were absolutely forbidden to write or inscribe anything of what the particular lodge might regard as their secrets.
Was Dugdale aware of a connection between Shakespeare and the Masons, which he suggested in his drawing?
Obviously, anybody who would have seen that rendition and also made a trip here to Holy Trinity Church would have seen the difference and would have known that either this guy was a pretty bad engraver or that there was something deliberate going on here.
What was happening? Was this contagion of codes catching? I was starting to see coincidences everywhere. My own initials are RC. My mother's name is Francis, with an E. I look like Henry Neville. Was this some kind of existential crisis I was going through? Or was I just falling into the same trap that Petter and others had tumbled into, where coincidence and speculation become simply more exciting than rationality? Maybe I'd just been brainwashed during the days we spent together.
Cipher is a difficult area of study. I'm very interested to read this Norwegian book because there was cipher at the time, but it's so difficult not to project what you want to find onto the cipher. Yet I believe that there was cipher being used.
I'm no code expert, so I had to go and see someone who is. One of the world's most intelligent men.
Hello, I'm Robert. Hello, nice to meet you. Hi, Yola.
And while I was in Switzerland,
So where do you go?
Petter was meeting with one of the world's leading experts on Shakespeare. Emeritus Professor at the University of Birmingham, co-editor of the Oxford Complete Works, and Honorary President of the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust.
Good afternoon.
Stanley Wells.
So,
I've talked often to people who are looking for what we call their 10 minutes of fame. There tends to come the light of fanaticism into their eyes. And I find that constantly.
We have page 379.
They know that journalists, television presenters and so on are likely to take an interest in them if they come up with an unorthodox opinion, with something that contradicts popular belief, so that there's something rather unworthy about it.
Jolle Sigmund is a typographer who knows how they printed books in Shakespeare's time. His IQ has been measured at 192. He designs his own ciphers for fun and profit, and he's a high-ranking member of a Swedish Masonic lodge. He can recognize symbols, uncover deliberate mistakes, and pronounce with authority on the likelihood of Petter's claims.
So, this is an imitation of the first folio.
Ah, right. The famous poem.
Yes, and here is it in lead.
Oh, wow.
I did it
Really?
yesterday, yes. The first visual impression is that someone was out of his mind. When we see certain things that there is an unusual large space in between this letter and the colon, one makes a wonder, why is it so? And then I see these characteristics, and then I understand that it is made on purpose. There is no doubt of it. A skilled typographist is needed to make such mistakes.
Let us add 17 pages, which brings us to page 3.
Why?
17 for R.
Okay, all right. If you're testing a code, you need to have the sort of mind and training that I don't have. I'm not capable of analyzing codes.
This one was made by a master who could arrange it in such a way that it served his purpose.
To encode some kind of message.
Yes. The message is the most important. The names, they present themselves. Bacon obviously cooperated in this work, and even the others as well. There are Rosicrucians and the freemasonic symbols hidden in codes in the secret language. Especially in this situation, suddenly, middle of the sentence changing.
That is true. To fit with the iambic pentameter that you would expect here, then you would think that this clause here would go on that line. That I thought her as chaste as unsunned snow. That would fit. That would be the iambic pentameter. But instead, there does seem to be a deliberate attempt to place this here in order to create that triangle and that word.
Yes.
To give us the clue to tell us that this text was published by the Rosy Cross.
In their work. So that instead of I am the best or I am the best,
they're working collaboratively.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's a genius to someone who had a vocabulary this large and a knowledge of so many subjects. That leads me, I become intrigued about a collaborative mind. I'm not sure he wrote all the plays, but I think he was the inspiring genius.
All right, it seems to me that if you're saying that somebody is saying that Shakespeare wrote Shakespeare, but nevertheless he was actually a front for Francis Bacon or Christopher Marlowe, I mean, what crap it is, really, you know. I mean, why would Shakespeare have allowed himself to be used as a front for these people, especially if he was capable, apparently, of writing most of the plays by himself? It's just nonsensical.
I think it is historians who are ridiculous. Just look at the proofs. Understand the message for yourself.
Oh, Besson. Wow.
It's there.
Certainly does make you really start to think whether there might have been deliberate choices being made in the issuing of this book. It doesn't affect the authorship for me, but maybe the people whom Shakespeare, the author, was associating with.
As we journeyed onwards, I was exhausted, but engaged. My head was bursting with questions. How did the Masons fit with the Rosicrucians? What really linked their supposed leader, Francis Bacon, with Shakespeare? If they had deployed all these codes, not only in the first folio, but on gravestones and in the sonnets, this must have been a massive enterprise, costing huge amounts of money. Who had those kind of resources? Not only intellectual, but financial, political, and social. And what on earth was motivating them to do all this? This must have been more than just some clever game with words and numbers. What were they hiding?
What I'm interested to know now really is why, like, you know, cui bono, for what purpose? Now, why are the Rosicrucians interested in Shakespeare? Why is Shakespeare interested in the Rosicrucians? And why bother including these codes in this big chunk of text that it would have taken, you know, years to formulate? What's the point?
It's a much more important cause that drives these men to do this.
So what is it? What's the reason?
Well, a certain search is encouraged.
In the Rosicrucian manifesto, Fama Fraternitatis, the reader is encouraged to look for a grave where the Rosicrucian founder, Father R.C., be perfectly preserved, buried alongside his most treasured possessions, including his most sacred book.
They encourage the search for that grave and other graves of the other brothers. A specific spot on the earth.
Is it not allegorical though, surely? I mean, these people are dealing with allegory.
Sure, it could be, but then again, the allegory that everybody suspects could be indeed very hands-on.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is what I do. I use those cryptological hints as a hands-on treasure hunt for the grave of R.C. with his books and the other artifacts.
Well, so you believe that you have collated the coordinates, as it were, to lead us to this fabled R.C.'s
I know where
grave.
it is, and I'm going to teach it to you. First, we have to identify the map.
On the first page of the first folio, there may be an image of this map. The poem is printed in a perfect square. There are 4 W's located on a line. A new line can be reflected in another W on the opposite side. A right angle can be drawn centered on the top.
Okay.
The Masonic emblem appears, the square encompasses, containing 2 3 4 5 triangles, each with a 53-degree angle.
I say this is the pattern of the map. And this is what all Masons strive for, to climb the 7 steps to the top.
What exactly are you sending towards?
God's mercy.
Right, okay.
The dimensions of the symbol are inspired by the book of Genesis, in which God created the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th. The Masonic emblem can have the dimensions 6 times 7.
And 6 by 7 is...
42, even I can do that one, yay!
Yeah, okay. Sonnets.
Shakespeare's sonnets were published in 1609. On the first page, there is a dedication to the Only Begetter. The poem contains several possible acrostics, including TWO.
These 3 letters.
What, the acrostic letters here?
Yeah.
M-A-P, map.
Map. What kind of map? A TT map.
A TT map.
What is a TT map?
Tell me.
Are there any page numbers in the sonnets?
In the original...
In the original, of course, the original.
There are, aren't there? Yeah, in the...
No, there are not.
No.
The only numbers are the sonnets themselves.
Right. So why don't you go to the second sonnet then? Did you go to the second sonnet?
No, but I did now.
Right.
And you know what the second word is?
40.
40. Then 40 and 2.
Ah, 42.
Right. And what are 42 words down, if not two words beginning TT? That could be the thing that we are looking for, the TT map.
Let's have a look.
Let's.
The treasure.
This is the only TT combination in this sonnet.
In the whole sonnet.
Yeah. And the treasure is word 42 down from there.
It's interesting, this poem has got TW, TW,
That's
TW.
right. That's a bit how I begin to think. Yeah.
It's infectious, Petter.
It is.
Contagious, like a disease.
Now I would like to ask you a question. Sure. What would be the wettest dream for a Shakespeare scholar to discover?
It'd be a new play.
A new play?
Yeah. On a par with finding a new novel by Jane Austen, I think that would be the greatest, most wonderful discovery in all literature.
Well, what about manuscripts?
Yeah, I mean, to find the original manuscripts would be a pretty big deal, yeah.
Pretty big deal, okay. Because this is what I say we can do.
None of Shakespeare's manuscripts have survived. His plays alone must have required thousands of handwritten pages, but not a single one is known to exist today.
But look, if we follow the 7 steps to the top, there is something to be found.
I mean, that's God's mercy. That's God's mercy, you said. The summit of God's mercy.
God's mercy, and I sincerely believe that the long-sought manuscripts of William Shakespeare's work is there to be found.
In Bacon's book, Silva Silvarum, he describes 1,000 different experiments, including 2 on the conservation of bodies.
And this is where he describes how the Shakespearean manuscripts could be preserved. And I'll show you why I think it has relevance to the Shakespearean manuscripts.
Okay.
He describes it twice in this book. And the first time it is found here, I conceive the preservation will be of bodies put into quicksilver, but then they must be thin, as a leaf or a piece of paper or parchment. And then we note 100.
In experiment number 100, Bacon describes the conservation of paper.
And 100 is the value of Francis Bacon.
Oh, yes.
This is on page 33. 33
Which
is
Bacon, just Bacon.
And the next place he discusses conservation of bodies is 771. And 177 is William Shakespeare. This is the method. And we have tried this ourselves. We have experimented with quicksilver. Dipping paper into it, and it seems that it is all moist, all wet, but when you detract the paper, it is dry and perfect.
Really? So scientifically this actually works as an experiment?
Yes.
The paper can be preserved in mercury?
Yes, and it's so heavy, it's 14 times water, so it will repel all air, it will be preserved hermetically perfectly well. And is this merely a speculation? I say no, because there is a preface to this book. And there it is stated quite plainly, "He that looks attentively into them shall find that they have a secret order." This, I think, is the secret order. The preservation of bodies, and in particular paper, and still in particular Shakespearean manuscripts, in quicksilver, somewhere.
And do you know where?
We're going to find it.
It's kind of... I am excited despite myself, I have to say. I really, you know... Well, this is an entirely new twist, frankly. So where's that, then?
We have to confer our map.
Petter believes that the Rosicrucians could have designed and hidden a constellation map in the first folio. To examine this treasure map, we have to go back to the beginning, the poem To the Reader on the first page.
All these letters shall be looked upon as Greek letters, because they represent a Greek name. And this is, my friend, one of the oldest tricks in the code book.
In a letter to King James I, Sir Francis Bacon revealed a cipher in which he replaced English letters with Greek ones. By using this system in the first folio, the anagram Bootes appears.
Bootes, a slow-working star in North Pole near to Charles Wain.
Pronounce it for me again.
Bootes.
Bootes.
But look, W-A-I-N.
Petter believes that To the Reader conceals acrostically the constellations Bootes and Wain, two constellations in the immediate vicinity of one another in the night sky, and which are also associated in mythology.
So we are talking star.
Astronomy and astrology.
Astronomy, not astrology.
Well, they're virtually the same thing in the early modern period.
But astrology is what it may mean to characters living on the earth. I'm talking about astronomy.
Okay.
How many times are Wain written in Shakespeare, you think?
I wouldn't like to speculate, but I presume probably not that many times.
That's right.
The constellation Bootes is not mentioned in any of Shakespeare's plays, but the constellation Wain is.
So how many? Just once? Isn't one of the Henrys?
That's right.
Yeah, which one? Henry IV Part 2 or 1?
Part 1. And where did we find Bacon?
Also in Henry IV Part 1.
We did, didn't we? Oh my God, it's page 53.
I was experiencing some of that thrill of discovery that had kept Petter moving from code to code, each one in a seemingly perfect alignment. What were the odds of all this? In addition to Wain and Bacon, the word boots, spelled like the constellation Bootes, is printed on this page.
What happens if we draw this line?
Petter draws a straight line between the two constellations.
There is an expression up here called eggs and butter, but more often think of eggs and bacon. If we connect these.
Petter draws a new straight line between the words butter and bacon.
You see, I am in the middle. If we insert a compass. You see, the bees have the same relationship with the I am in the middle. And not only that, my friend, if you connect these lines, you get a 6x7 setup.
But are you therefore just using that I am as more of the evidence for the Baconian authorship of Shakespeare?
Well, I'm thinking...
You're thinking more actually I am is related to...
God.
Right.
You laugh.
No, well...
You probably know your Exodus.
Well, yeah.
Curiously, Exodus, which is book number 2 by Moses, has a passage where God is saying his name, and that is Exodus 3:14. Pi, circle.
Yeah.
You know what God is calling himself?
Well, I mean, God's name, which is never supposed to be revealed, is Yahweh, but which...
I am.
Right.
Look, this has to do with religious questions. It has to do with God.
But, again, let's just clarify. What does this mean? Why suddenly is at the centre of these structures the phrase, I am? Why have they put this here?
Well, I interpret it to be of God.
Why God, though? Well, why is God in the middle of it?
Because of something I have seen further down the road.
Well, you're going to have to get there now. If we ignore the authorship question for a second,
okay.
It's very easy for me to accept.
If the Freemasons are involved, they are preoccupied with the temple of God in Jerusalem. On the Temple Mount.
The temple itself, which was destroyed by the Romans
in year 70 AD.
And why are they preoccupied with it?
Perhaps they have something that rightfully should have been there, but at the moment there is no temple any longer.
There's nothing in the temple there now, obviously. Well, apart from the way.
Oh, well, there's a mosque.
Yeah, indeed.
The Knights Templar excavated the Temple Mount in Jerusalem in the 1120s, and legend suggests that some of Judaism and Christianity's most important treasures were then brought to Europe. It has also been said that the treasure was taken north, to Scotland, to become symbolic artifacts of the Freemasons. Could it be that this is what the Rosicrucians are referring to when they urge us to look for the grave of Father R.C.? The grave is also supposed to contain a lamp, cryptically described as a lamp who has learnt to shine from the sun. This echoes a Kabbalic description of the Jewish menorah in the temple. Petter believes that this is the sacred artifact which his treasure map leads to.
And in this light, the authorship question becomes less important. To me, at least. What do you think? Is it interesting?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've certainly got, you've more than got my attention, let's face it.
You're listening now.
Yeah, I'm absolutely listening, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's
beginning to blow your mind.
Well, I mean, it's all supremely elegant and attractive, enticing almost. But how does that work with the astronomy? How does that work with the map that you've spoken about?
This is what we are looking for.
For the Chimera?
Yes.
In one of his poems, Ben Jonson reveals that he knows about the Chimera of the Rosy Cross. In Greek mythology, the Chimera is a beast composed of a lion's head, a dragon's tail, and a goat's body. These animals are also constellations.
Here is Leo's head. And the dragon's tail is here. What if we had a star here that did represent a goat?
And have you found one?
Wouldn't that be quite...
Capricorn.
Capella.
Oh, right.
She's the goat.
Okay.
Yeah. And she's right there. Exactly.
All the animals in the Rosicrucian Chimera are in the immediate vicinity of Boötes and Wain. But there is one piece missing. And it is Ben Jonson who reveals the last constellation in a dedicatory poem addressed to Shakespeare.
The poem has a very famous ending about a certain bird.
Sweet Swan of Avon.
Ben Jonson named Shakespeare the Swan, a swan that can also be seen in the sky.
Stay, I see thee in the hemisphere advanced, and made a constellation there. Shine forth, thou star of poets.
He says, you are a constellation.
The Cygnus.
Cygnus. It's called the Northern Cross. Right. And by some, it has been thought to be a prophecy for Christianity.
Oh, okay, right. So God has placed that constellation in the sky as a signal for humanity that ultimately Christ will come.
Wouldn't that be a great spot for a temple?
Yeah.
The swan completes the map. Petter believes that the Masonic symbol is constructed in the sky. The swan's biggest star is located exactly at the point of the 37-degree angles. And in the first folio, 2 stars of Cygnus is encoded on 2 page 37s.
Now I'm going to show you something that I myself cannot explain. I find this really astonishing. If there is any bearing to Boötes and Wain being on page 53, then it should be possible to find Cygnian evidence
on page 37.
Sure.
This is in the comedies. A, L, B, I, R, O. Like this. And those E's. Now what do you think of that?
It becomes very difficult to explain away that level of acrostic coincidence.
But it doesn't stop there. There are more pages, 37, and there are more stars. The most important star of Cygnus is Deneb. Here you have D, E, N, E aligned, and it's a perfect right angle here to the word Bootes. Bootes. And this is on page 37 of the histories.
Oh.
This is where we are heading. This is where the geometry fits.
The page numbers refer to angles in the symbols in the sky. Deneb is also the 7th step in this map made of constellations. God's mercy.
And the square and compass in Masonic telling, that has to do with the Old Testament, with the building of the first temple by Solomon.
Yeah.
So that is the old pact, the old covenant. But here we have Cygnus, the Northern Cross, which is a Christian cross in the north. So the point uniting these two spots will be exactly here. And what better place to create the new temple than
to choose a point in the sky and then what, and then choose
as above, so below. This is what I think is the true purpose of all this. Because we are thinking in terms of a temple uniting Judaism and Christianity. So the one represents the old covenant and the other the new covenant. Just like you are of Jewish origin but a baptized Christian.
So it's right at the top. So it's
Right at the top.
At Deneb. That's the place.
That's the place.
That's the place in heaven, and so on earth. And where is that then? On earth.
I'll show you. Cauda Cygni, the tail of the swan, and it's quite close to the coast. In fact, there is a treasure island that is quite famous onto the coast of Nova Scotia.
It's like stories about Treasure Island and so on, isn't it? You have a map. Ooh, how exciting. We'll go and find buried treasure from the Spanish Armada and so on. Is it ever there? Of course it's not.
It's fantastic.
What do we have here? I know where the proper entrance is.
Something there.